Hello viewers and our beautiful listeners on Q Radio there 103.3. Welcome back to yet another edition of The Viewpoint. I am your host, Saja Brito. Well, joining me in the studio today, let's welcome our guest, Honorable Omar Amadou Jallow, who was the one-time Minister of Agriculture under the presidency of Adama Barrow, and of course the PPP party leader. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy that you have invited me here. I want to thank all the staff and the people who are involved in the Viewpoint program. And I will say that we have to commend you and congratulate your TV for the role they are now playing in developing information flow and education in Gambia.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Let's begin with your political career.
Yes.
How did it begin and your involvement with the PPP party?
Thank you very much. I think this is a new question. Nobody has ever asked me this question before. Fortunately for me, when I went to high school, it was at the height of Pan-Africanism. And some of us believed in the Nkrumahism doctrine. So we were the students of Kwame Nkrumah. At that time, most of us don't read political books except those written by Kwame Nkrumah or the Juche idea from North Korea or the Red Book from China, because we thought that socialism and communism was the best system that Africa can adopt. Fortunately, I became involved in youth activities when I was young. And then when I left high school in '66, I decided to join the People's Progressive Party because I thought from their declarations and from what I see, the openness and the accommodation. And then I became a card-carrying member of the party in 1968. And then an activist, particularly among the young people, to try to see how best I can win over the youths of Serekunda area to the PPP, because at that time, the Serekunda area or the KMC, apart from Bakau, were all staunch supporters of the United Party, led by P.S. Njai. That is why in all the elections up to 1977, the United Party used to win the seat of Serekunda. So I decided, and the PPP agreed to make me lead and become the candidate for the PPP in Serekunda in 1972, but I lost to the UP candidate who was Djibu Jani. But I continued with my activity and to woo over, particularly the young people of Serekunda. So I used my activities and my interest in sports and culture to win over most of the young people. That is why in 1977, when I contested, I won. And then after that, all the subsequent elections till 1992, I used to be one of the candidates that pulled the highest votes in Gambia. When I won in 1977, at a very young age, of course, I was 30 years old, Sadauda decided to make me the Parliamentary Secretary, External Affairs. At that young age.
You were the youngest serving minister?
Yes, at that time.
In his region?
And his regime,
What
yes.
was that experience like?
Well, it was an experience, but I was fortunate. As a young, inexperienced politician, particularly to hold office, I was lucky that I had experienced, matured, and seasoned civil servants to work under me and to give me the correct advice that I needed. So I served as parliamentary secretary for 4 years, from 77 to 81. And when the drought set in the Sahel, the summit decided at a summit that all countries that are affected by the drought should establish a water resources and environment ministry, which will be responsible for forestry, water resources, fisheries, wildlife conservation, etc., etc. And Sadauda decided in 81 to create this ministry and asked me to head and establish this ministry in January 16th, 1981. So I sat and headed this ministry from January 81 to February 1989, when he moved me to the Ministry of Agriculture from 1989 to 1994, when the coup took place.
What was the PPP party regime like? Many people call it the regime of extravaganza.
That's why I am happy that where was the comparison? Sir Dawda, after 29 years of presidency, had one property in Wellington Street and the property in Fajara. And I was obliged and obligated that when he took the loans from the BIC Bank and Standard Bank to build his properties, I was one of those young people whom we trusted and be sending to the banks. If somebody in Africa, Sir Dawda got his Banjulunding properties when he was the director of livestock services in 1956. He got in Birkama property in 1959. He became prime minister in 1965. And I want people to show us, or to show the whole Gambia, this extra vacancy, where did we put it? I was minister. For 14 years under Jawara, I had only one property, and Yaya Jammeh seized it. The property I'm living in today, I got it because when I failed in 1972, the Gambia government decided to establish the Gambia Commercial and Development Bank and appointed the late Ousseynou Njie, who was then the deputy PS in the foreign ministry, an economist, to head it. He invited me to join him to establish the bank. And it was this bank that sent me to Ghana to do development financing and come back. And it was the bank that gave me a loan to build the house where I live now. And after building it, I rented it to John Germans for 8 years to build the bank. That's why I'm saying, all the former ministers, most of us are here from the Jawara regime. When the Yaya Jammeh accused us after the coup of rampant corruption, he established a commission of inquiry. 4 commissions were established. And all the ministers went before the Bamfo Commission. We were investigated for 11 months. And the decree that established this commission said the commission will sit in public and the report will be made public. And it is only from the report of this commission that Yaya Jammeh can justify the regime of Sir Dawda was corrupt and there was mismanagement of the funds of this country. But fortunately for us, all of us went before this commission for 11 months. And the decree said the report should be made public legally. Up to today, all the other 3 commissions, their reports were made public, except the Bamfo Commission. Up to today, I'm sitting here. I have for 22 years made it my responsibility, when Yaya Jammeh was here, to hold a press conference and request for the publication of this report so that people will know whether we were corrupt or whether we were misusing Gambia funds. But up to today, the report has not been published.
What does that tell you? That it's not true?
All the accusations were not true, were false, and were the serious misrepresentation of the attitude, the culture, and the standing of the leadership of the PPP.
What are the impacts that it had on the party? The fact that he banned the party at some point? That's
why PPP became weak. He banned the party for 7 years, from 1994 to 2001. And of course, use his powers and his access to communication to mislead and misinform the Gambian public about the PPP, which were all erroneous and wrong. But at that time, I was the only one who speaks against Jammeh. That's why whenever he says anything against the PPP, I respond. That is why I went to prison and on detention for 22 occasions. I lost my eye under torture because I thought I owe it to my party and to my country, particularly the people who gave us that responsibility and that honor to lead for 29 years, to tell the truth and to say the truth and to stand for them when it is difficult. Because they made us leaders when the going was nice. But the test of leadership is when the going get rough. They were just, Yahya Jammeh was just telling people lies. He was just informing people wrongly that what the PPP did. But unfortunately, God is great. Yahya Jammeh already the commission of the Janneh Commission. He has identified over 193 plots or properties that President Jammeh owned. Yahya Jammeh used to give out millions of dollars when everybody, all of us knew what his salary was. I was happy that they interviewed him in 2015. He said he was one of the longest serving state guards to Sir Dawda, but he has never seen Sir Dawda give out more than $1,000. I responded to that at a rally in Bundo. I said, I'm happy that the Jammeh has said it because Sir Dawda knew he had a salary. He has no right to dip his hands into the coffers of government to spend it on his personal political agenda. That is why Sir Dawda could not give out more than $1,000. That vindicated Sir Dawda. Yahya Jammeh himself vindicated Sir Dawda by saying that.
That's quite interesting. The coalition. Who came up with the idea and how did it start?
Fortunately, I have been a person who listens to elders' advice. When I resigned my job from the UN in East Timor in 2001, I passed through London to visit Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. He was not happy with what I have done because he said, why should I leave this my good job? My home pay after all expenses was $6,000. I told him I'm going back to fight the dictator in Gambia. I think it is not honest and my conscience is not right for me to stay in East Timor just for the money and forgetting the people who made me what I am. But he asked me and advised me that when you go, you are stubborn, but never contest elections. Make sure you go around and try to bring the parties together. Because without a united front, you can never remove the dictatorship in Gambia. So when I came, I went to Hassan Musa Kamara, I went to Sirif Diba, I went to Usainu Dabo, I went to all opposition leaders and tell them what Sir Dawda said. And I have been working and making statements. It is on record in all newspapers in Gambia, in all online radios and newspapers, that if we don't come together, we can never win. But fortunately, we were able to come together in 2016, and we won. PPP played a pivotal role in bringing the parties together. And really, I thank God for allowing us to be part and parcel of that process to remove despotism in Gambia and allow Gambians again to breathe the life of freedom and liberty.
Does the coalition still exist?
The coalition still exists, but we have some challenges and some problems. We have to accept that when we were making the agreement, for us to go into a coalition for 3 years, and all the 7 parties agreed to these 3 years, and the 3 independent candidates who are with us, Dr. Aisatou Touré, Buba Aysane, and Muhammad Magasi, they were the independents. We also agreed that if we select from anybody, that candidate will not contest under the banner of a party, but as an independent candidate. So there were 3 contestants or 4 contestants in the convention that was organized by the coalition. The UDP brought Adama Barrow as their candidate. PDOIS brought Halifa Sallah as their candidate. LCP brought Dr. Bojang as their candidate. And RRP brought Ahmadba as their candidate. But when we voted, Adama Barrow won. And when he won, the next day he tendered his resignation to the UDP and is no longer belong to a party. And that's why we went to the IEC. And at the IEC, it was clearly stated, and it is viral on all the social media, that our candidate said there and then in the presence of the chairman and the commissioners and all of those who are from the different parties who went there to nominate him, that he is an independent candidate put up by 7 political parties and independent candidates. And if he wins, he is going to stay for 3 years as president, and he will call up at elections and hand over to the winner.
What happens if that doesn't happen?
Depending on us and the Gambians, what they will do. But for me, up to today, because I never agreed in my life to be a prisoner of my conscience. I believe in the 3 years. And I thank God, and I'm fortunate that when the campaign started, when we selected Adama Barrow, I was one of the few with Halifa Sallah and Aisatou Touré who went with him to sell him to the Gambian people. From Koina to Katong, from Koina to Bara. And in every meeting, all of us will state publicly that we are putting in a transitional government, a coalition of government for 3 years. And the Gambian people believed in us, and what we told them. And God supported that proposal and made us win, and Yaya Jammeh left. So for me, that's my belief. That's what I sold to the Gambian people, and that's what is the contract we, the coalition, had with the Gambian people.
Does a contract exist?
Was
an MOU signed?
The MOU was signed. I gave it here to the program that invited me here, Daraji. Anybody who said it's not exist, then he's dreaming or she's dreaming. Even if you have not signed a contract. When you go to court, do you go with a paper? You don't speak. In any court, it is what you said. You'll be judged on that, what they say before they write. During the time of our ancestors, they sit at the Bantaba and make agreements, and they live by it and are ready to die for it. What I'm saying, as matured, responsible Gambians and leaders who people look up to for guidance and matured and responsible leadership, should not, even if it is a gentleman agreement, we should be seen to be respecting what we say. If not, there is some fundamental flaws in our culture and our nation.
What do you make of the vice president's statement when he threatened the president that he will sue him if he doesn't comply with the constitution to serve for 5 years?
Well, he was not there when we were signing or talking about the coalition. But his party was represented, and the agreement was signed by Yamseka and Mr. Dabo, who is now a member of parliament for Birkama North or Birkama South. And I'm telling you, even if we have not signed, am I saying, what I tell people, I will never ever go into an agreement if I am not convinced that I should go into an agreement before it is written. I said, our voices, our commitments, our statement to the Gambian people is far more important than writing a paper. Because it is on the basis of that people has voted for us. They didn't ask us to bring a paper and sign with the alcalos and with our supporters and with the villagers. Have they ever asked us to sign with them? No. They believed in what we said because they thought we are Gambians and we are going to live up to expectation, and we're going to live by what we said and what we promised them.
Your take on the tactical alliance? There
was no tactical alliance. Where was it? It was the UDP that proposed the tactical alliance. Because for me, I believed, and I still stand by it, that as long as we have signed the 3 years agreement, we all knew that the presidential elections will be held within the 3 years, the parliamentary, and the local council elections. Where did we not go into all these elections as a coalition government like what Senegal is doing today? The coalition government in Senegal is 7 years old, and they are going into it again next year. What is wrong with us? That we cannot fulfill the aspirations of the Gambian people. We cannot live by the statements that we made as responsible leaders of this country, that people look up to, not only for leadership, but for salvation, for the truth.
How do you reflect back on working as agriculture minister under Adama Barrow?
Fortunately, I did what I should do. I worked as Minister of Agriculture in Jawara for 5 years, so it was not new for me to be in that office. And it was the same office, the same table. Fortunately, when I came to agriculture, I have met agriculture in disarray. In 1993, when I was Minister of Agriculture under Jawara, Gambia bought nearly 200,000 tons of nuts. We produce a lot of vegetables. We were exporting 90 tons of vegetables through a cargo plane every Thursday, passing it through Radville Farms, which was buying all the vegetables from our women vegetable farmers. We were also self-sufficient. We have produced 42% of the rice needs of this country. But unfortunately, when I came back to agriculture in 2017, the whole of the Gambia's purchase in groundnuts was less than 35,000 tons from 200,000. That reflects the rate and the degree of poverty to our Gambian farmers. Rice has fallen from 42% to 15%. Not 1 ton of vegetables were exported out of this country for the last 8-9 years. It is a shame. So what I first did was to talk to the Chinese for them to bring rice for the farming community to uplift their poverty during their times of difficulty during the farming season. And it is the first time after Sir Dawda's regime that the Gambian farmers received free rice in all their families, free of charge, for them to have enough food to feed themselves and go to the farms and work hard. And it is for the first time since 2014 that the GGC can buy more than 400 tons of groundnuts in the first month of trade season. In 2017, end of December, the GGC bought 4,270 tons. That historic, that has never happened in the 22 years of Jammeh. And then agriculture during my time. I've established 45 gardens given to women groups in different villages, in different corners of the country, free of charge. We bring fencing for them, give them a borehole, and give them power through solar, and build them articulate systems. We also introduce for diversification poultry. We have financed over 20 poultry farms for young Gambians to be involved. We make sure we provide you with the fencing, with the housing, and 1,000 chicks free of charge. We also went into the development of livestock. We were able to arrange through our bilateral donors to organize 100 groups of women and men, but I told them 80 groups out of the 100 will be women groups. And we gave each group 30 rams free of charge and $50,000 so that they can breed, sell to the Tobaski ram sale in Abuko that I have organized in the First Republic. And I started it this time when I was there, but unfortunately, when I left this Tobaski, they didn't do it.
Vice President made a statement a couple of months ago. I don't know if you've seen or heard. He said that 1.7 million Gambians are at risk of food insecurity. What do you make of that statement? First of all, is the statistics right?
For me, as a former agricultural officer, after the rainy season, we sent our experts to make an assessment of the agricultural season and bring their report. And when that program, then what statement was being made? Rains were still on. I don't know how they arrived at an assessment, but I was happy that when the president was asked the question on his way back from the United Nations, he said he thought that statement can only be made in November when the agricultural experts have made the correct assessment and report to cabinet.
Why do you think you were fired?
That I don't know, because the president never called me to tell me for the 18 months I was working with him. He has never called me to tell me of anything that I have done that he was not happy with. And when he was firing me, he didn't talk to me. He gave my letter to the Secretary General, who gave it to me. I packed my things, went home.
Spoken to him after that?
No. For what reason should I speak to him?
Will you ever work for him?
As what?
Again?
Never. I've said that everywhere. Why should I?
So it means you're not open to working with this?
I have contributed to this country more in the 22 years of Jammeh than when I was 14 ministers as Sadawada's minister. Those days are nice days. I was enjoying myself. But when the challenge came, for me to liberate my country, I went to prison 22 times, lost my eye. My wife was taken to the NIA twice. I lost one of my friends to torture. My friends were tortured. My family were harassed. But still I stood up. And for me, that contribution is far more than sitting in an office. I still think I can continue contributing to the development of this country by being out of office. I will continue to work for my party, the PPP, to revive it, to energize it, so that we can continue to play our pivotal role and participate in the evolution of the political system of this country forever. But I don't think anybody should think that just being in an office of minister, I will never ever serve under this government. Why should I?
So you have an issue with Tambajang's firing?
Yes.
Why?
Because she was the one who sacrificed everything. She could have been in prison. She could have been held. And she was the one who succeeded in bringing us together and making this coalition to exist and to work. We as parties, we have tried to have a coalition in 2001. It failed. As parties, we have tried it in 2006 and failed. As parties, we have tried it in 2011 and failed. But when Mrs. Fatmata Jallow Tambajang came, unfortunately, I was the one who proposed her to lead. When we were invited to New York, all the opposition parties. Fortunately, it was only Ahmadba and myself who went as party leaders. All the other parties had representatives. On the last day of our meeting, we were asked, because there were so many international institutions that attended, and the Gambians in the diaspora, from Europe, from everywhere, that when you go, you opposition party, meet, as I raised my hand. I say, if you leave it with us, we'll make the same failures that we make in the last elections. Then the chairman said, Mr. Jallow, what do you propose? I said, this Mrs. Famara Tambajang has here is here, not representing any political party, but gender and gender activism. Let her go and call us to a meeting. If anybody doesn't come, then the whole of the Gambia, within and outside, will condemn that party for not wanting Yaya Jammeh to leave. When she came, she called us together. We came together. The UNDP was involved, and that's how the coalition came. So I thought, as Adama Barrow is an independent candidate, and Fatoumata Tambajang is not representing any party, both of them should, by law and by obligation and by respect for what she has done for us, stay in the coalition to the end of the coalition. That's my belief and that's my conviction.
What's your assessment of this government so far?
Well, as long as I'm still in the coalition, I don't want to be commenting much. But we have been hearing and seeing a lot of challenges that need to be circumvented. We have seen a lot of challenges that need to be rectified. And as human beings, we should accept that we make mistakes. That's why I hate the glorification or personalizing of leaders. In Africa, one thing that kept us backward up to today is glorification of leaders and personalization of leaders. When we select leaders, we end up making them gods. They own the parties and own the country. I don't believe in that. That is why all our leaders, if they want to survive, they should listen to advice. And they should make sure they get people with required expertise and experience in the areas of their responsibilities. That's why Sir Dawda succeeded. He made sure the civil service was never politicized. For 17 years, I never knew which party my PS belongs. For 29 years, nobody has ever seen Eric Christensen as Secretary General in a PPP platform. Francis Boj as Secretary General on a PPP platform. Jabez Langley as Secretary General on a PPP platform. And the last Secretary General has never been on a PPP platform. Sarah Jamha. Any of my PSs has never attended a meeting that I have in my constituency. But when Yaya Jammeh came, he destroyed the civil service. And civil service is there to rule and to serve a government of the day. They are the machinery of government. Government, as politicians, should be policy makers. And the implementers should be the civil service. That is why I thought one of the most important reform that we should have taken as a new government is the reform of the civil service. During our time, the World Bank identified Gambia as having the best civil service in West Coast or in Africa. They used to send South African, Namibians, Zimbabweans, Ghanaians to come and understudy our civil service here. I think the first reform that we should have embarked upon is the reform of the civil service. During our time, you cannot be a permanent secretary without going through a process. Even going to be a commissioner of a division. And then, after commissioner, then you are appointed deputy PS. Before PS. But now, Yaya Jammeh destroyed it by even picking people from the street, making them secretary general. People from the street, making them permanent secretary. He balkanized and destroyed the civil service that was built to be the best civil service in Africa. So we have a responsibility as a government to restructure the civil service, make the desired reforms, and make sure we don't politicize government institutions anymore.
The fertilizer scandal. Some people say he is just being implicated. What's your side of the story?
Unfortunately, as long as it is with the courts, I don't want to comment on it. But I am not a stupid person, I hope. If I was implicated, will I take them to court to go and embarrass myself? We wait for the courts to decide.
That's actually very interesting. What do you think of the TRRC?
I'm very happy, but I am not happy with the time limit. The TRRC should do what happened in Ghana, what happened in South Africa. As I said, I've gone through what no opposition leader has gone through in Africa, in Gambia. What my family has gone through, no opposition leader's family has gone through it. But I've forgiven Yahya Jammeh because I love this country. I have my children here, and I have my grandchildren here. If we want to pay back, if we have to be vindictive, we'll end up like Sierra Leone. We'll end up like Liberia. But what happened in Ghana didn't happen here. Jerry Rawlings killed 3 former heads of state by scouting squad. Shot 13 ministers one morning. One of them was my best friend when I was studying there. He was a minister also. He came to visit me, spend his leave with me. Went back home 4 months after. 375 people died under torture in the chambers of his security forces. Shot 3 judges. One of them was a woman. They established a TRRC. What was important is not killing Jerry Rawlings. What was important is trying to build reconciliation. Build a foundation of peace and reconciliation. We as Muslims, some as Christians, are in religions that believes in forgiveness. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born in Mecca. What the Meccan people did to him, kill his friends, kill his family, he has to run away to go to Medina, where he had no relatives. They were all Jews and Christians. They accepted him. But when he came back to Mecca, as the most powerful prophet of all times, he never killed anybody. He told them to go back home and repent your sins. Jesus Christ, when he was being nailed on this cross, he turned and said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing. What I'm saying is, if we put Yahya Jammeh in prison, now Hussein Habri is in prison. Charles Taylor is in prison. But fortunately for Charles Taylor, he's in prison in England. But he could have a child with the wife just by going to visit him. Do you think that's a normal prison where local people go? If you go and visit Hussein Habri in his prison in Dhaka, some of our people here are not living in such comfort. And then we have signed now that we will never kill anybody again here. If we bring Yahya Jammeh, we will not be putting him in the prison like local people. But for our interest is, let us go in and have money like what Ghana did and South Africa. South Africa one morning, they shot 168 students by apartheid. Over 9,000 people were killed. 9 best friends of Mandela were killed in his prison. When he left the prison, the first person he went to visit is the wife of the prime minister that put him in prison for 27 years. And he set up the TRRC and compensated people. What I'm saying is, if we call those 14 kids, their families, who were shot dead in April 2011, and give each of their families $5 million, what is better for them? To get the $5 million, change their lives, than putting Yahya Jammeh in prison. All these boys working with At-6 were also victims of 10/11. When I see them, I want to cry. All these people, the Harris family, all other families that lost their loved ones, they disappeared, they were tortured, they lost their jobs. Can we just think of Yahya Jammeh? And to be honest, anybody who thinks only about Yahya Jammeh, you are dishonest. You are a prisoner to your conscience. Yahya Jammeh alone cannot do it all. We had our own people, our families, our friends, our neighbors who were assisting to do what he did. The person who came to punish me, to beat me up in the presence of my family, in the presence of my children, in the presence of my wife, was not Yaya Jammeh, it was Sana Sabali, who is my relative, and the person who beat me up in the depot and break my eye when I was detained for 14 months and don't allow any of the member of my family to see me. It's called Babu Karba, Ibrahim Abba. The man who beat me up in prison, mile 2, when Sana Sabali, Yankuba Toure, Sadibu Haidara, and Edward Singate brought high chairs, asked all the former ministers to stand, and they called 20 military people to beat me up. These military were headed by Bach Samba Jallo. How can we talk about Yaya Jammeh alone? Come on, man. When you are killing your Tobaski sheep, the person who holds the back leg and the one who holds the front leg and the one who holds the neck so that the blood will not spout in your face, and the man with the knife are all killers. If we want to follow each other, we're going to destroy this country. That's what I'm saying. I believe in forgiveness. It's difficult, but we have to believe in God. When people tell me, I said, when I was being tortured, when I was kept in cells, I served for 41 days in the condemned cells where they took those people and killed them in 2012. I was detained in a military camp for 14 months. They didn't allow one member of my family to see me. How many people who were not detained, who were not arrested, who were not beaten, died? My trust in God is strong. And God has asked me to forgive, because every day we do something that is anti-God.
Interesting. I've been following most of your interviews recently, and you've made it very clear that you're not interested in contesting for president. Yes. And you've always emphasized the need to empower the youth to take up these positions. Let's wrap up with that.
I'm just paying back. When the people of Serekunda at the age of 26 had confidence in me and trust in me to put me as a candidate, and I failed, and they put me as again in 77, and in 82, and in 87, and in 92, as a young person, up to the coup d'etat, I was 40-something years. Can you imagine? After spending 17 years in parliament. Now we have young people who are more educated, more experienced, more internationally exposed. Why should we be selfish to think we should still continue to contest elections and lead? That's why I said in Africa, I'm older than Barack Obama. But after 8 years, he's left. He's popular, he's intelligent, people love him. Does that mean America is not going? How many American presidents left the presidency whilst Mugabe was still in Zimbabwe as president? 40-something years. Does that mean Zimbabwe is more developed than America? The young people should now be allowed to take the destiny of this country into their own hands. They can do it. I trust them. That is why I said the PPP is now embarked on recruiting young people to come and take over the party. We can be advisors. Why should I, at my age, be contesting elections? When we have people, my children, my grandchildren, who can now stand up and do more than I can do. Why should I be selfish?
What do you have to say to the Gambian people?
I will just like to appeal to the Gambian people that Gambia belongs to all of us, irrespective of tribe or religion. That is why we should see each other as friends, as family, and don't allow politics to divide us, tribe to divide us, religion to divide us. We should not. Fortunately, my father built the first mosque in his home in Serekunda in 1946. But he made so that all his 15 kids, not one of us went to government school. All of us, primary school, St. Teresa's School, Carnegie. High school, all the girls to St. Joseph. All the boys to St. Augustine's. Whilst we still have the biggest madrasa dara in my father's home, run by Imam Babali's father. And I'm still praying. Therefore, religion is stronger than politics. During the time of PPP, we joke about it. I sit with Halifa Saleh. I with Pandura. I sit with Sehu Jaite. They were all opposing me. But we sit in the same view and play draft. When your party has activity, go to your party. When mine have, go to my party. But we are one. I have the right to contest election. They have the same rights as me to contest election. Then why the fight? Anybody who wins is the choice of the people. I will appeal to all Gambians, particularly the young people, that they should take the destiny of this country into their own hands and make sure they move the country in the right way. And the right way is that Gambia belongs to nobody but to every Gambian. All Gambians are equal in citizenship and under the law. Thank you very much.
Interesting conversation with Honorable Omar Amadou Jallow there. We really want to thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure always.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, this now brings us to the end of this edition of The Viewpoint. And we want to say to our viewers, thank you very much for watching. And of course, our beautiful listeners there on Q Radio 103.3. Thank you very much for listening. Do join us next week for another exciting episode. Thank you very much for watching and bye for now.